Go. Take it away.
Hello, everybody. This is Benjamin Boone, and I'm so excited to be hosting this session of Inside the Music for September 2025. We have a special guest in the Zoom room we're going to talk with, a very special guest. We have conductor Rei Hotoda, whose contract, bravo, was renewed, and we're all so excited by that. And we have Ellen, who's serving as host. If you don't know Ellen and you see her at the concert, go up and talk to her because she actually is a composer. I'm telling a secret on you, Ellen. Uh, so this is, as Stephen mentioned before we started recording, the 71st season of the Philharmonic. And Ray and Stephen have worked together to just get an absolutely fabulous season planned for you. I mean, if we look at this, I know you can't really see all of the names and everything, but I was checking this out and seven, and this is kind of unheard of in Juan Pop. Well, when we introduce him, he can talk about this too. But there are 17 composers that are being performed this day,
Director Music.
and seven of those are United States composers. That's actually pretty rare, okay? And also pretty rare, they're the Masterworks season, which isn't like it's not like we're not the LA Philharmonic and we can have a huge season. So it's absolutely incredible that of the 17 composers being performed, five of them are living composers. So as a composer myself, I compare that with when I started doing Inside the Music, and it's just absolutely transformed. And the programming is vibrant. It speaks to today. The voices that are, not heard as much are being heard, and we're honoring the tradition from which those voices are coming. And just looking, for example, at some of these composers, just to hopefully get you excited about upcoming concerts. Juan Pablo Contreras, who is going to be our special guest. He's been a friend of Fresno for a long time, and I'm really thrilled that we in Fresno can track his career from time to time and him come. And then if we look ahead, we have John Weinglass, who is a friend of the Fresno Philharmonic, and there's a commission from him. A commissioned work is going to be performed. Kevin Day, this piece, Manhattan Nights, he wrote one of the best new wind ensemble pieces I've ever heard in my life. When I heard that performed a year ago, I'm like, all of this stuff is stuff I wish I had done. I was so envious and so envious that he had done that. And then we have, some people that we don't hear as much as other people, like Glinka and Hindemith. But then we have Damien Gator is composition. It's a fabulous program with fabulous composers and fabulous guest artists. And I just want to thank Stephen and Ray for putting together such an exciting season. Ray, before we move on to more things about the upcoming concert, did you want to say anything about how you assembled this season?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Ben. I apologize. My internet is going in and out in my place here. But yes, very excited to celebrate America 250 starting in January with this wonderful concert with Michelle Kahn. But this is one of the hallmarks of our orchestra is that we always are bringing the new voices, the living composers, but always performing the pillars of our orchestral repertoire. And I think that that combination has been a winning combination for us. So thank you all for your support in these extremely diverse programs, but also just being there for our audiences. And thank you again, Ben, for doing the Inside the Music this season.
Oh, this is my honor. Can you tell I'm excited by your season? I'm very excited. I did want to thank the sponsors of the concert coming up. So the William T. Coyle and Wanda G. Coyle Charitable Trust, and of course Measure P. I love Measure P. The expanded access to arts and culture, and Measure P has helped so many entities in Fresno, and I'm just so excited that we as a community came together to support our park and support our art. So getting to the concert that we're going to have this Saturday and this Sunday, I won't spend tons of time on this, but the guest pianist Jorge Federico Osorio, I'm probably mispronouncing that, recorded tons of Brahms. He's a Brahms specialist. So we're in for a massive treat with him being the one performing this piece. And Ray will tell us when we're talking about that piece a little more about the piano part. And so let's just take a moment and do just a little cursory overview of what the concert is. So it's going to open with four dances, and that's by Ginastera, who's an Argentinian composer. How many of you know Ginastera and have heard a piece by Ginastera? I remember one of my colleagues at Fresno State when I first was hired uh, would always get angry that Ginastera wasn't being played enough because he thinks he's one of the greatest 20th century composers. So I wish he had lived to see that the Fresno Phil has not only done him once, but I think this is the twice or third time that the Fresno Philharmonic has played a work by Ginastera. And this is four dances, so it's a suite, and it's a suite from a larger dance piece. And so they not every dance and every moment is there, but it's the concert version of something that was meant for dance. A little fun fact about Hinastera, he spent a year in the United States on a Guggenheim Fellowship. He's known for using local idioms, which ties into what Juan Pablo does in his piece of Argentina. And Ray, would you like to tell us a little about the four different dances that are in this work?
Yes, so I really thought this piece would be really perfect for Fresno because it is really an exploration of the Argentinian agricultural life. And there are four movements, and the first one is really, it's called agricultural workers. And there's so many elements of folk music in this, but also lots of dance elements. The second movement is this gorgeous kind of lyrical song, folk song. It opens with the flute, gorgeous solo, and it's called the Wheat Dance. And this is more of this slower, contemplative movement. Then the third movement is explosive, is the word I'd like to use for that movement. What's really interesting about that movement, actually, it's called the Cattleman, and there are so many mixed meters in that movement. There's always this feeling of unsettledness. And then the last movement is a malambo. Now, if any of you have a chance to look up the malambo dance from Argentina, I highly recommend it. It is a spectacular, fast-paced dance between two dancers, two male dancers. And some of these dances can go long way into the night or into early morning. It's this intense driving rhythm throughout the piece. And the winner, of course, is the last one standing. Anyway, it's just a spectacular four movement work that I think the audiences will really appreciate.
Thank you, Ray. And I'm going to skip this piece because we're going to talk about it pretty much in depth. And let's go to the Brahms then. And Brahms, of course, was born in Germany. And does anyone, well, I have it here. The answer's in front of you. I should have masked it and then seen if you remembered. And that was what piece of his was performed by the Fresno Philharmonic last year. So it's almost like the Fresno Phil is doing a Brahms cycle, right? So we had the Symphony Number One last season, and then we have Piano Concerto Number One this season. I think that's really fun. And I looked up some fun facts. This came from other orchestral program notes and stuff, so I didn't just plug it in and take whatever the computer told me. But I looked up for fun facts about all of these composers, and one fun fact about Brahms that I actually did not know is that he legitimately made money for his family. He had to earn a living, and so he played piano, and he played music on piano in cafes, dance halls. He even played in brothels and taverns, and I did not know that. But according, I think, to the Cleveland Orchestra, he did. I also didn't know that he loved merry-go-rounds. Like he would love to go and ride as an adult on merry-go-rounds. He thought that was a lot of fun. Ray, did you know either of those crazy things?
I did not. I did not at
We
all.
both learned something today. Isn't that fun? That's what we like
Exactly.
about Inside the Music. Uh, Now, when this concerto was played, and when I asked Ray to talk about it, she'll, I'm sure, expound upon this, but it wasn't very popular. A lot of pieces, when they're first performed, because the audience doesn't know what to expect, because maybe the composer's making new ground or doing something different, or expectations are a little bit different, it's not always popular. And that's one thing I think we need to think about as an audience when we hear new music. That it's not like we've heard it on the radio. It's not like we've know really what to expect when we hear a new piece of music. So uh, his piece, even Brahms at the premiere, they didn't really like the piece so much. And it was only until Clara Schumann started to champion it that it really became more popular. And my understanding, and Ray, is this right, that this piece was a musical response to Robert Schumann's suicide attempt. And the kind of interesting emotional dynamic as a part of that is that Brahms was in love with Clara, or infatuated, I should say, with Clara Schumann.
It's
Whether
it's
that,
the ultimate love triangle.
yeah, and he liked Robert Schumann too. So I mean, yeah, it's this whole conflict between these three people, and we never know whether Clara and Brahms got together. There's, people conjecture, but nobody knows. But it makes it an interesting piece, and when you hear the passion and the different range of emotions in this, if you keep that in mind, I think that you'll see that Brahms had very complex reactions to this event in his life. Ray, can you tell us a little more about the Brahms, but also just out of curiosity from me, I have vague memories of talking to some pianists when I was in graduate school, and they were saying that for some reason they felt like Brahms's piano writing didn't seem like it was written by a pianist. Now, I have no idea. But I mean, is there any truth to that, or am I like not remembering correctly, or is
No, I think with can composers who are pianists, I think most often, like we think of Rachmaninoff or Prokofiev or Ravel, they have their own unique technique to play the piano, and oftentimes we think, well, this is unplayable, but actually, because of their unique talent at the keyboard, they're able to do things that most really fantastic pianists find difficult. And so, I think Brahms, I am not quite sure how big his hands were, but the
yeah,
sound, always this massive
it's
sound
a
on the
big
keyboard.
sound. Yeah.
And not only that, this concerto in particular is extremely difficult for the pianist. I remember trying to learn it as an undergrad, and the double trills just killed me. There's a moment several times throughout the concerto where the pianist is continually playing trills. And so there are four trills happening at the same time.
Or
And also, yes, also getting softer and more, of a diminuendo. And controlling that with just 10 fingers is just the most incredible feat. Not only that, but you're sustaining the bass note with one finger as you're trilling
so
these.
so you're just to so people everyone try this at home. So you hold up your left hand, it's reversed on this camera, right? But you hold up your left hand so your pinky is sustained. And you're trilling between these two fingers and these two fingers?
One and two
So
and
one
three
and
and
two.
so it's 1 3 2 4,
Yeah.
and then you're doing 1 3 2 4 in this hand.
Okay, everybody mimic Ray. Go back and try to do that.
In rhythmic preciseness, though. It's not
Right,
just
right.
random things. It's like 30-second notes to the downbeat. Anyway, not only that, the massive octaves, the scales running down in a crescendo in sixths and tenths. I mean, it's incredible, this piece. And one of the things I find amazing, you talked about this love triangle. Well, we have to remember that we see this image of Brahms, and he's this bearded, gentle, like you think of him as a teddy bear, or maybe he drinks a lot of beer. But there was a time when Brahms was 25 years old, young, no beard, just experiencing life. This was his age when he wrote this piece, at the age of 25. So you can imagine meeting Clara and Robert Schumann for the first time, and having Robert Schumann be your idol, and he's taking you under his wing, and he's encouraging you to write and compose. And this was his first attempt at a symphony. So when you hear the opening of the first movement, it is really Brahms trying to write a symphony for the first
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And it is the first 5 minutes are just the orchestra just really digging into this passion that will be his language for the rest of his life,
Yeah.
of just meaty chords and suspensions, and it opens with a timpani roll. You know, um, so I just think it is one of the most spectacular pieces in the romantic repertoire, but it's also um, uh, interesting how he really relates to Beethoven, so much in this piece, and how he was inspired by Beethoven's Ninth Symphony when he wrote this piece.
Yeah. How could you
Uh,
not be? Yeah.
yeah, so many influences from Robert Schumann to Beethoven, but again, just really finding his own language throughout this work. And mind you, he took his time when he was expounding on his ideas. The concerto is almost 50 minutes long.
It was long for the time. Yeah.
Yes, and was not at first the premiere. People did not like this work. And it's hard to believe because when we listen to this now, the orchestra rehearsed it a little bit last night. Everyone on the stage was like, this is such an incredible piece. We
Right.
haven't even worked with a soloist yet. And to think that people just did not like this work when it was first premiered is just astounding to me.
I think that psychology of what you're expecting and what you get is just so amazing. There's a podcast if anyone's interested called it's Radio Lab. If you've ever heard it, it's aired on our KVPR. And there, if you look up the old episodes, there's one called Musical Language, and it's about a riot that took place because of Stravinsky's Rite of Spring and how, not fulfilling the expectation caused dopamine release, etc. It's really a fun podcast. Musical Language Radio Lab, and you'll find it. Thank you, Ray.
Yes.
And a fun fact that I can't help but mention, when Ray was doing that, it hurt my hand because these two fingers actually are on the same nerve, so it's very hard for them to operate independently. So if you want to just do something while we're talking, try moving and doing two different things with these two fingers. It's not easy. So, Ray, you're continuing the cultural crossroads this season, and I'm really, really excited that you are. And part of that, before we get to our guest composer, is that you're going to have indigenous artwork displayed in the lobby of the Sheboygan Theater.
Yes, and Huichu Kakari is a local artist from the Purepecha tribe. It's an indigenous group that lives in Mexico, in Michoacan, Mexico, where Juan Pablo's piece, the story behind his piece originates. So, in fact, I just got wind, and Alan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Huichu actually created a new piece of artwork for this weekend's
Oh
premiere.
my gosh.
The entire exhibit just for this. 12 whole
The
pieces.
entire exhibit for this event, this cultural crossroad event that the Fresno Philharmonic is doing. That's really, really cool.
Yes, and so you, the audience, will be the first to see these new works exhibited in the lobby.
So I hope you get there early. I hope, go ahead and get there early so you can enjoy that before hearing the music or at intermission so you're not just rushing by. That would be what I would do. This
And
butterfly is
also,
going to be important.
Ben, come early on Saturday if you're coming to the Saturday concert because we will have taco trucks
Oh my gosh.
from 5:30 to 7:30. So tell your friends, everyone, to come and have some tacos, look at the artwork, and enjoy our concert.
No reason to go out for dinner. You have it there at the theater. That's great. So now I'd like to introduce. I'm doing this because I did a funny one with Juan Pablo last time we did this. Next, I'd like to welcome our very, very, very special guest, a friend of the Fresno Philharmonic, of the Fresno Youth Orchestra, of Fresno State, and of the entire Fresno community, our very, very special guest, Juan Pablo Contreras. Hey.
Woo! Thank you for having me. And great picture, great introduction. And I'm excited about the tacos as well. I didn't know that.
Very excited.
And
So we'll just informally talk, and then we'll see if the people have questions near the end, and we'll talk a little bit about like Fresno and then your musical journey, and then we'll maybe get into the piece a little bit, and then after talking about the piece, talk about the location, the culture, and then if you want, I have the recording of the Rocco Orchestra playing it, and I could queue up a place if you wanted, but we don't have to, okay? But just letting you know, since we haven't talked before, that's what we can do anything actually. But I was actually talking to Stephen, and we were trying to remember like the first time that you were in Fresno, and I think it was with the Youth Orchestra of Fresno, but we couldn't remember if that was Mariachi Land, your piece, or what that was for. Can you remember?
it was the very first orchestra piece that I wrote. It's called El Laberinto de la Soledad, The Labyrinth of Solitude, and it was inspired by a book with the same title by Octavio Paz, who was the Nobel Prize winner in 1990, a Mexican author.
Uh-huh.
And that was you and I went to the same school, Ben, so we share yeah. Manhattan School of Music for the master's degree has like a thesis project where you have to write a big orchestra piece to be premiered. So that was like the first real orchestra piece that I wrote. And the following year, it won the BMI William Schumann Prize, competing against 700 applicants. And I was the first Mexican-born composer to win it. So that was kind of what started my career as an orchestral composer. Like it gave me the validation of like, oh, you're an orchestra composer, even though I just had that piece. A year later, it had been played by 10 orchestras, and that's kind of what started this journey for me. And so that piece was played by the Youth Orchestras of Fresno. I'm thinking now 2015, actually.
I was going to say it had to be
Yeah.
10 years ago, I think.
Yeah, 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it was my first visit to Fresno, and I think this is my sixth time.
I think it's your sixth
here.
visit, and so it's been
Yeah.
so nice. And I just wanted to share with the audience that part of what the Fresno Philharmonic does, and also the youth orchestras of Fresno does this as well. But when guests come in, oftentimes they are able to interact with students at the area colleges, right? And this has a huge impact on our community and on our students, and for them seeing that, well, it just gives them a different perspective, right? And so I just wanted to share with all of you that one of the direct impacts that I have seen is that one of my composition students and Ken Froelic's composition students ended up meeting Juan Pablo when he was in Fresno. I think it was a session that we had planned where you either came to talk to our students or something, but it was during that interaction the Fresno Philharmonic and youth orchestras coordinated, met students, and that student now is not only studying with Juan Pablo at USC for his doctorate degree, and his name's Esteban Olmos. He's a great composer, and he's also very funny. And but he's having his piece done by the LA Chamber Orchestra this coming March. So this is
LA, I'm gonna correct it because it's
correct me, please.
even more impressive. LA Philharmonic with Gustavo Dudamel.
Yeah, I knew
Commission
Dudamel
him.
was doing it,
Commission
but it's the
him.
full orchestra. It's not the chamber group.
Yeah, amazing.
Go Esteban. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
And
is, I wanted to point out that is not only does the Fresno Philharmonic do things like concerts, they do all of this other stuff that has a great impact on our community. So we want to thank you. We want to thank you for that very, very, very much. And I'm actually editing some funny stories I could tell about Esteban. And that is continuing, just so everyone knows that the Fresno Philharmonic is continuing to do good work like that. Juan Pablo actually has invited the composers from Fresno State to come to the dress rehearsal on Friday to hear the performance of his work at the dress rehearsal, and then he's going to meet with them and talk to them about the composition and answer questions and things like that after they've gone over it. So thank you, Ray and Stephen and the Fresno Philharmonic, for lining that up for our students. That just helps us so much. So let's see. I think the next thing we should do is get a little bit into you as a musician, Juan Pablo. So you grew up in Guadalajara, and your mother played piano, and you actually started by playing in a youth orchestra. Is that correct?
Yes, I started playing violin when I was 6 years old, and then played in a youth orchestra, but the ages were too, I was 10 years old and there were people that were 30, 35. So it wasn't really a youth orchestra. So that kind of discouraged me. But around that age, heavy metal was very popular in Mexico. So I left the violin and I started playing electric guitar and then electric bass in metal bands in Guadalajara and singing. And eventually I joined a band that played symphonic metal. I don't know if you've heard this genre, but it's basically doing like orchestral arrangements for the band. And that's kind of how I found my way back to the orchestra and fell in love with the idea of writing for orchestra. But it was thanks to heavy metal.
And you did heavy. This is kind of fun for the audience, I think. You did heavy metal versions of Tchaikovsky, right?
Yeah,
Or who was it? Was it Tchaikovsky? Someone told me Tchaikovsky.
we used Tchaikovsky's scores to learn how to orchestrate, which was, I mean, he's a very good orchestrator. It's really hard to just learn like that. So we didn't know what we were doing, but that's how I ended up coming to the States to study and started my journey as a orchestral composer.
So we mentioned the schools that you went to in education, and especially since two of your schools are in California, I would be curious to know what what you learned at each of those. It was unique because if Juan Pablo went to Cal Arts for his undergrad, and at least as far as at least back in the day when I was around there, it was more avant-garde improvisation, kind of cutting edge. Yeah, that kind of experimental music, I guess, is what you would call it. And then
Yeah.
Manhattan, where I meant when at least at the time I was there, was very entrenched in, classical tradition, but also in, modern classical tradition. But it was in the more in the Western scope of things for me. And then at USC, what I know about that, by the way, the Obas are there too. But in the jazz department, maybe they are a little more experimental, but in the composition, oftentimes a big focus is a little more in the sort of orchestral way, not orchestral, a movie, cinematic kind of scope of writing. So I'm wondering what you
Yeah.
picked up from each of those places that you're carrying forward today.
Excellent questions. So CalArts definitely was a very crazy school all around, and they even allowed you to like choose your own classes, like you could make up your own curriculum. And what was good about that for me is that it gave me like a very well-rounded education as a musician. Like I was trained as a tenor, like an opera tenor, and I sang title roles in operas. I was taking piano lessons with Director Rei, like a really amazing pianist, and studying composition. And one thing that was pure luck is that there was a community college in front of CalArts where Daniel Catan, a very famous Mexican opera composer, taught. So someone introduced me to him, and that relationship of him as a mentor was, I think he was like the first living composer that I met, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that he was Mexican and that he was so successful, and he was writing an opera for the LA Opera and Placido Domingo, um, and he was writing music that was informed by Latin American culture, and that I think that planted a seed in me that made me pursue this path of writing Mexican sounding or celebrating music. So that was CalArts. Manhattan School of Music, I studied with Richard Danielpour, who was a student of Leonard Bernstein. So kind of in that very American orchestral tradition, which I really enjoyed. And I think that's where I learned how to write for the orchestra. And then USC was a very well-rounded place, primarily also where I trained a lot as a conductor. And I think that has really improved my writing as a composer. Like the more I have learned about how to be practical with my writing and think about how it's going to be, put together in a rehearsal and then performance setting, really improved how I write. So I guess I became more practical and more focused on writing for orchestra. And I also taught, that's where I started teaching. And I think that also helped me just even understand my own music better the more I explain it to someone else and my process. so yeah, that was 9 years of school, and yeah, I'm still involved in academic teaching, but
Ray
yeah.
is smiling with all of the talk of USC. So,
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
I
think
mean,
you are. Yeah.
I think that having a composer who really understands the orchestra and conducting, uh, it's just going to help your performances
yes.
in so many aspects, but also more performances when conductors know that it's, accessible, like it's not too crazy to conduct. I don't know, but I think that it would just help have getting more performances of your
Yeah.
work
Mhm.
to have
Oh, I
that
think it's very smart.
practicality. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move then to the piece that's going to, it was a co-commission with the Fresno Philharmonic. And Ray, I think you've conducted this before, right?
I
Somewhere?
have not conducted it,
I
but
thought
I
you
do
did.
remember the conversation, Juan Pablo, when you came to one of our concerts and said, "Hey, I'd love to have you be a part of this co-commission. It's about Dia de los Muertos, and would you be interested?" I remember having coffee at Yarva, right,
Yeah,
Juan
yeah.
Pablo and Stephen,
Exactly.
a couple of years ago, and we were all excited about it. So I'm so
Yeah.
excited to have it come to fruition this weekend.
Oh, would you like to tell us about the first about the region and the place and the culture, and then actually before we do, I'm gonna this is the region you're talking about. Let me get a slide up and we'll do a question and answer. So can you all, I think I'm sharing my whole screen, which probably, no, I'm just sharing that. Okay. So can you all find Michoacan? Can you find it on the map? Can you point to it? Can you, if you were in my class, I'd give you a lollipop if you actually got it. Do you have it? Do you have your fingers
Yes.
on the screen? Do you have it? Okay. Oh, what happened? One more. How many of you got it? Raise your hand. How many of you got it? Okay. And then if we zoom in even further, right, this is the city that Juan Pablo is trying or depicting, and the memories of his childhood and going to Dios de los Muertos in his childhood. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Juan Pablo, to give the audience background into the region and the culture and your experiences as a child that are in part depicted in your piece.
Of course, I want to do a quick thank you because this is the second co-commission that I get from Fresno Philharmonic, and I want to echo what you said at the beginning. It's very rare that an orchestra, an American orchestra, is so committed to new music and that is able to seamlessly, include living composers in their programming. So I feel very honored to be back here and to, see all of you in this concert. So thank you so much for making that happen. So yes, during that conversation, my son, which you saw in a picture earlier, had just been born, and I was thinking about heritage and lineage and family traditions, and he was born. He's an American, and I was thinking about what his life will look like, and if he will remember his traditions and ancestors. And I thought back to my upbringing, and my grandfather from my father's side was from this little town called Pátzcuaro, where the tradition of Dia de los Muertos started, the Day of the Dead, which takes place in November 2nd. And we used to visit his hometown to take part of the celebrations. And the basic narrative is you would get to this town, to Pátzcuaro, you visit the plaza, and you would hear these like bands that are like playing brass instruments warming up in the plaza. Then you would take a little boat through a lake that would take you to an island called Janitzio. And you would go to church, you'd have food and sing with mariachis. And then at nighttime, we would all convene in the cemetery for the real celebration to take place. And there's a legend from the Purepecha indigenous tradition that says that at midnight, if you see a butterfly near the tombstone of your loved one, it means that their souls are transforming into butterflies, and into monarch butterflies, and they're starting their migration to heaven. So the game that my siblings and I always played was trying to locate these butterflies near our ancestors' tombstones and trying to guess who it was. Now thinking back, it was probably there's a lot of butterflies, monarch butterflies there, because that coincides with the migration of the monarch butterfly that goes all the way up to Canada. So you can see like trees that are covered completely in butterflies, which is really surreal. But at nighttime, I think technically butterflies don't go out at nighttime, so it probably didn't happen. But I remember it like as a maybe magical realism kind of memory, which is even cooler that we had that imagination of that happening. So the piece kind of tells this story and guides you through this journey of experiencing what the Day of the Dead feels like in Mexico. It's incredibly festive. It's not sad at all, which is interesting, and the music itself, as you'll hear, is very joyful, as is the whole experience of visiting this place.
And I think since you were mentioning the monarchs, I think that someone told me those are the same monarchs that go to Monterey, California.
Yes.
So, and one of the amazing things is that they'll go, say, to Mexico. One generation will go to Mexico, a new generation will hatch, and the next generation knows to come back to Monterey. So it's pretty magical. Yeah. Now, Juan Pablo, I looked online and I got some photos, and I'm not 100% sure this is really the place, but the internet said that it was.
Yeah.
Is that the place?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the island, and this is the lake, and here's another picture of that from another island. And then I found it fascinating because apparently you can tell me if it wasn't correct, but that this is what it looks like when you're there. I've never been there. I don't know, but
that's it. Yeah. Exactly.
It looks totally luminous and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. Would it be helpful, do you think, if I have a very short little aerial video of the Day of the Dead thing to give people a sense of the atmosphere? Would that be a helpful thing? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, let me I thought it was fascinating. I don't know about all of you, but I've been aware of Day of the Dead, and I've seen celebrations in Fresno and all of that, but I really didn't know what it would be like in Mexico or what it would look like or anything. I just really didn't understand. So I'm not going to play this whole thing, and the music isn't so good behind it, but just for the imagery, I'll kind of scroll through it for you all. Oh, I think you see the boats here coming up.
The nets of the boats are also shaped like butterflies.
Oh.
El cempasúchil es una flor que representa. A veces ponemos cempasúchil, prenda que se.
Una fiesta, casas, los adornan con flores.
There's some boat stuff.
Su tumba, se les ponen sus flores, la gente se queda ahí toda la noche velándolas.
Significa que pues los queremos, los esperamos y los esperamos con flores, velas y la comida. Y eso es lo que les ofrecemos a los difuntitos.
So I think, you know, I've never been there, but you see the brass bands, you see that it's like a parade, you see people are joyous. You know, they're not wearing black and with their heads down. A joyous affair. And then there's another thing that happens in your piece that you're giving, I guess, an homage to some of the indigenous traditions, and that's the marimba with multiple players, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So here's so everyone knows what we're talking about, and we'll play it, and then you can explain maybe what people are seeing.
Yeah, so it's a tradition in Mexico to have multiple musicians playing on a single marimba, and it has a buzz sound that I don't know how they get that sound. I tried to recreate it, but it's tricky. I think it's the construction of the marimba itself, so it's not a classical marimba. So I thought it's a surprise moment in the piece, but you're gonna see. We'll spoil it for you since you're here, but you're gonna see all of the percussion musicians join and play on the same marimba, which is cool for them because they kind of never get to do that. And I've had some complaints like we're too close together, so hopefully because they have to kind of like squeeze in and find their notes. So yeah, but it's a nice moment that I planned ahead of time. I always try to like include at least one surprise in each piece that I write, and this was this one.
Great. And I'm wondering because it does have I was wondering when I was listening and I didn't realize it was because of the buzz sound, but it sounds almost like on a traditional Ghanaian xylophone. They have the gourds, but then they have some, well, spider web is the traditional material over it, and it just creates a buzzy, kind of like a kazoo, sort of. So maybe it's something with the resonators, but thank you for pointing that out because I didn't notice that. Well, we're going to take questions in just a minute, but Ray, would you like to talk anything about what you find most interesting in the piece, or what you think the listeners might want to keep an ear out for?
I think there's a moment in the work where the party settles down and the sound Juan Pablo creates, it really sounds like a butterfly soaring. And I want everyone to think of that when you hear this moment with the strings and the harp and the woodwinds fluttering around. It's a really magical moment of the piece. And all this partying around it, but yes, and then at the very end, the piece ends with a violin solo, and Juan Pablo shared with me that it is him as a young child, the innocence of going to these celebrations and remembering his ancestors. It is a really poignant ending, and I think it's, again, truly magical. So I'm really excited to share this work.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we can take questions, Juan Pablo, or we can queue up some of the video that was online, whatever you would like to do. I think we have a question. I'm sorry, go ahead. Question, yes. Here's the competition. Can you ask Juan Pablo a question he hasn't been asked before?
Okay, well, at least they've exposed him to me, so I know who he is and that kind of stuff. He's from Mexico. That's kind of interesting.
David, do you have a question, or Lorenzo? I'm thinking some of the musicians in the room.
But maybe Juan Pablo or others should find an opportunity to visit the new butterfly exhibit at the Chaffee Zoo, which would be a perfect accompaniment to this piece.
In the Fresno Zoo, or which one?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I was there. I went last time, not to the butterfly exhibit, but last time I visited with you. That was a stop I made with my son, and it's really good. Right? Yeah.
Wow, David, what a great connection. I wish we had known earlier. We could have, collaborated with the zoo.
Right. Also wanted to mention we're going to San Miguel de Allende for a Day of the Dead this year. So,
awesome.
Guanajuato. So we're looking forward to that as well. Just a side comment to Ray, actually, about the Brahms. I was reminded when you were talking about the triangle of Brahms and the Schumanns. Had it ever occurred to you, because I've thought about this for a number of years, that maybe Brahms's infatuation with 2 versus 3 rhythms might have something to do with the triangle.
That's funny.
Definitely, definitely, yes. That's a great point, because you'll hear throughout.
Tell everyone your profession, David.
Yes. Lots of hemiolas in the concerto.
Right.
The person with a psych degree has spoken, so it must be so. Yes,
we should also mention that Jorge Federico Osorio is also Mexican born, so it's gonna be a very Mexican weekend here at Fresno, and he's the biggest superstar from Mexico. Like he's the Emmanuel Axe of Mexico, and I've been a fan since I was a child, and I got to meet him a few years ago, but I'm so excited to reconnect with him and to hear him. He's an incredible player that has also done a lot to keep or promote the music of Mexican composers. He does a lot of Manuel Ponce, which is a very, very famous Mexican composer. And he has a lot of really amazing albums of that piano solo music. So yeah, so you're in for a treat. He's amazing player.
Kay, did I see that you had a question?
No, I was going to comment that I was in Oaxaca for the Day of the Dead.
Ah, wow.
And it was so unbelievable. For the week before, everyone's displaying skeletons in various ways. And the streets pickup trucks are going through with sugar cane to form the arches. Everyone makes an arch in their own home. Food products and marigolds, lots and lots of marigolds. And so it's a whole community thing. And then when you actually go to the event, which I was expecting some solemnity, and instead you walk in and here's a Mexican band playing crazy great music. And then you go in by the graves, and yes, the people are there. But again, they're decorated, it's festive, and a bit solemn also, but it's not at all like we deal with death in this country. I think we have a lot to learn.
Other questions? Well, I just want to thank all of you for chiming in. You've made my day. And Juan Pablo, thank you so much for taking the drive up to LA so that you could get here in time for this. And I hope the drive was okay. And we really look forward to the concert. And I thank you in advance for meeting with the composition students. And thank you, Ray, for such a wonderful program, and the Philharmonic staff for all of the behind the scenes work that they do. It's going to be a great season. So please share with everyone that there's going to be taco trucks before the Saturday performance, and have people get tickets, go with friends, invite people, and let's do what Kay was saying. Let's make it festive. Let's make it festive and have a good time.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone has a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Thank you. And
Thanks.
say hi in the concerts. Want to meet you in person. Bye.
Thank you. Have a great day.